Jared, welcome back to episode 15 of Your Wealth Playbook. Pretty exciting guest on today, Adam Elliott from the Newcastle Knights.
It's a very fun episode today, talking about all things professional athlete, using that brand and how you can give back to the community and being a father.
What an amazing story Big Ads has got. I know him personally. He's been through the trials and tribulations, lost a Millie, gained a Millie that he goes into, and it's probably the best Millie that he's ever gained.
It's a roller coaster today. Let's get straight into it.
Adam, professional rugby league player for a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
Left home at 14 to go to boarding school. Was it 14?
Yeah, 15.
15.
Yeah.
Left home to go to boarding school. What's driven you to be successful in rugby league?
It probably comes from a darker place. Like, I didn't really enjoy a lot of my childhood and saw a few things I didn't really like, and I was luckily really good at footy and just thought, geez, this could help me get out of a cycle, I reckon, if I'm completely honest. That sounds a lot probably doom and gloom than it really was, but deep down, if I'm being honest, that's probably been my motivation. You know, not to say I didn't have a great childhood. I had a great childhood, but there was certain things that I thought, sport in particular. I also really loved playing cricket and was handy enough at that when I was a young fella too, and I just thought sport could be my way of breaking a few of these things. You talk about healthy living and, say, you know, alcohol and different things like that, and I thought, although I've had my own battles with it, I thought sport could be my way of getting out of that. And then sort of as you start to get a bit more serious, I guess, then I realised footy was the one I had to go for, and I had to, if I was going to do that, I had to throw everything at it. And like you mentioned, I was pretty young when I moved away, so for me that was nothing. If I didn't have the support of my mum and dad to be able to do that, I wouldn't have made it. They were huge in me being able to move away and stay away. I wanted to come back home. I was homesick. I missed them. I'd call them. I know, like, my mum loved having a mummy's boy as a son, but she had to be pretty ruthless at times and say, no, you're not coming home. And I reckon now that I'm a parent, I appreciate more how hard that probably would have been for her. So it was a combination of things, but yeah, I suppose having an older brother with a disability that didn't have the choice to play sport, really, he sort of had that taken away from him in a certain context to be able to do that mainstream. So that's also been a huge motivator for me. You know, having that, I suppose, bit of gratefulness there always to land back on and be like, well, at least I have the choice.
A lot of rugby league players have got a story trying to come out of a situation, trying to better themselves. Not just rugby league, but I'd say all athletes. And it's that drive that you get probably as a childhood to continue to be successful, because it's not easy to be a professional rugby league player, as you know.
Yeah, and as you do. Yeah, I suppose if, you know, I don't want to be throwing stones, but if you're silver spoon fed, as we like to say, and you sort of have a real cruisy, cushiony run to it, once you get to the elite level, it's a roller coaster. And you know more than anyone, Kez, you get dropped, you're in the paper for not playing well, you have scrutiny coming from outside that you probably don't think you deserve, and it's all just part of it. You got to get used to it. And I think a lot of players I've played with, and a lot of the really good ones, have probably experienced enough of that as a young fella to be able to have a bit of a thick skin that's helped them when tough times have come and they're under a lot more pressure and they're in the public eye. That stuff that's shaped who they are as a person early in their life probably goes a long way to help them stay at the top for a bit longer.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in the adversity that you face as a kid puts you into great stead, especially if you go into the sporting arena. But, you know, your childhood challenges, it is what shapes you, in all honesty. And, you know, we've seen it, a number of players that we play with, they probably come from challenging homes or difficult situations and circumstances, and it's what has created the man that they are today. And I know that you're a father, I'm a father, Jared's a father. You don't want to have that for your kids, but also you probably do.
It's funny. It's funny you bring that up. I was just thinking about it then. I was thinking about your three, and I know how hard you've worked for them, and I think we just spoke about not having a cushiony upbringing. And me and Millie always joke about it. Like, obviously my wife Millie's an elite athlete too, and she's worked her bum off to get where she is. And yeah, you know, her dad played NRL too, so I suppose she sort of had someone to look up to, but she still worked so hard to get to where she is. And we often joke around now that we don't want to bring up little softies. You know, we're going to have to learn not to spoil them.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to put boundaries in place that sort of ingrains the lessons that we maybe might have been forced to learn. You know, by necessity, we'll just have to teach them those lessons. So I think it's certainly something. I think, you know, you talk about the tough times make tough men, and then, you know, the cycle goes on to being soft, and we just don't want that for our kids.
No. So it's a thing that I do at home, and Emily's like, you can't be so hard on them, but I'm trying to be as the hardest that they're ever going to be on my three. Yeah. So that when they do venture out and Dad doesn't have control over those circumstances and situations, it's just like a water off a duck's back, because Dad used to make me go through harder things than this. And, you know, whether it be anything, you know, if, for instance, I was running along the beach when we were going on a holiday and Ali wanted to stop, and I was just like, no, you've got to keep running, I'm not stopping. And so she can either end up 100, 200 metres back behind the beach, or she can keep up.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just those little lessons that I try and ingrain into, so she doesn't grow up with a silver spoon, and she can have that resilience, I think, is what builds, and the character that I think is going to turn her into someone that that'll be proud of, which is, you know, I'm always going to be proud of her, but just someone that, you know, is going to have that.
Yeah, being able to align that maybe success with toughness as well, like mental toughness, being able to have both is important, eh?
Absolutely.
What does that look like for your son Lenny and your new one that's on the way? What does that look like? Have you and Millie spoken about that?
Only casually, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like, I think the situation with Lenny's a little bit more unique. He spends a lot more time with his mum than he does with me, so I can't then come and try and rule with an iron fist, and, you know, he'll never want to come and see his dad. I'll be like the school principal. So I know I'm a lot more softer on Lenny than I would be if he was living with us. Yeah, and touch wood, he's a pretty good boy anyway, so that works out well. But yeah, me and Mill, I don't know. We often talk about like discipline in the kids. I think if you can, the main part is not growing up spoiled, and not growing up being able to be a little smart ass. I think is, you know, if you're polite to people, and you in some instances have to work for what you get. Like, I'd love to give our kids good presents, you know, for instance, moving forward, but I'd like them to know that they've done something that's led to them getting something nice. I think just, not just showering them in gifts, and not just taking them on holidays because me and Mill feel like going on a holiday. They're things that you got to think, like, I think you got to think ahead for, and there's a lot more planning to go into it for us.
Yeah, if that's a end of term 2 good report card type thing, there's not just the normal, or it's hard
exactly.
to balance up.
Yeah. Their behaviour, I suppose, reflecting it. Yeah.
Ads, who's been your biggest influence on your career so far?
Definitely my dad. Yeah. Dad was my coach in all the sports I played growing up. You know, I actually reflected on it recently at Dad's funeral. You know, preparing for it though, I've probably never given my mum enough credit growing up, because I do have an older brother, James, who's James is autistic. James is really high functioning now, and we're so proud of him. He's got a great job, works back home. He's so independent. But as a kid, it was really, I remember it being really hard work. And this is probably more leads to what my opening point about I wanted to get away from home. It wasn't an abusive household or anything like that. It was chaos with my brother at times. He couldn't really speak. The house was always, the walls getting holes kicked in them. And James was like really probably towards one end of the spectrum. And my mum, every time I was so grateful Dad took me away to cricket or to footy, Mum was also at home with James on her own. And we all know as parents now, we love our kids to death, but you can get sick of them after a while. And that's when that's when your kids don't have a severe disability. So both of them, but certainly the relationship I had with my dad, sport was something that we bonded over, and sport, I think you always want your dad to be proud of you. I think I used to strive, particularly in sport, for him to be proud of my performances.
You sacrificed a lot to take you away for cricket and footy as a kid. Lots of car trips with the old man.
Yeah.
And to repay him back with, I'm going to do this for, my family, but, Dad as well, because he took a lot of weights. That had a massive influence on what shaped you.
Yeah, definitely. the sacrifice for sure is half of it at least, but I think it's also the bonding that you do make on those trips that's so important. Like, I can't wait to go on car rides. Yeah, we used to drive from Tathra to Sydney, which is 6 hours, 6.5 hours. And Dad would set an alarm. Well, we didn't have, we weren't lucky enough that we could go and pay for a hotel and stay the night before. And Mum certainly couldn't take an extra day off work, and Dad had to save all his up because I wanted to play every sport under the sun. So it's not like we had a necessity there. So Dad had set an alarm at 2 a.m, quickly pack the car, come in and wake me up. We'd leave at 2:30, 3 a.m. in the morning. I'd go up there, play a carnival, say if it was a footy carnival all day or a cricket game that goes all day. And then Dad would sit there, watch it all, probably get a bit of shut-eye when I wasn't watching. And then he'd hop back in the car and we'd drive another 6.5 hours back to Tathra. So that's a huge sacrifice, but it's also just time spent together. And yeah, we were best mates from my earliest memories. And I think that's sort of where it all came from. Yeah.
From that to now playing 160 NRL games across a couple of different clubs. Have you reflected back to that Vegemite sandwich you had before round 1 in 2016?
Cheese sandwich. It was the cheese, mate. Ham and cheese.
Tell me.
I kinda, I suppose, like, I played my 150th last year. You've dogged me a couple of games. There's a bit more than 160, but that's all right. I'll let that slide. Played my 150th last year, and I suppose I had a bit of a reflection then. But I always think there's blokes playing 300. As much as I'm proud of my own achievements, it's just always about trying to stay sharp and trying to stay in the game. I think I'll have so much time when I'm retired to reflect on the career. So I try and probably look forward more than anything. And I think, especially now that I'm injured, it's like, you've got to look forward.
Yeah. Tell me about that cheese sandwich at the Novotel in Manly.
I reckon you spiked me just quietly.
I think it was Vegemite. I'm pretty sure I seen you putting Vegemite on.
Because it was a week before you debuted, so I think you were jealous that I was getting a crack before you.
That's very true.
Yeah. No, it was ham and cheese toasty. Ham and cheese toasty. I remember going into Des Hasler's office anyway. Got a bad bout of the old food poisoning, and I remember going in, and anyone that knows Des knows he's just a funny character. And he sat me down and told me that he demanded an investigation into the cheese at the hotel. So he had me back. But yeah, it's certainly not one of my finer moments. I wish I'd made a better choice.
Talk me through round 1 for you, the build up to it. Obviously, it's round 1, starting the NRL season, all the families there. You get on the field, amazing feeling, regardless of performance or cheese sandwiches or Vegemite or however the story goes. It's a massive achievement.
Yeah, it is. I suppose it's a very long process. I was 21 when I debuted. Signed at the Bulldogs when I was 14 though. So I think a lot of kids are playing for a contract when they're sort of playing SG ball or Australian schoolboys or whatever it is. And I never had that struggle, I guess. Like, I was so lucky they recruited me so early. So although I knew I had to work really hard, and I did work really hard, I just, for some reason as a kid, I always thought it was just going to happen. But then it wasn't probably until I become full-time, and I had a full 12 months of playing reserve grade before I got a crack at first grade. And that was the point where I realised that it is a bigger step. It's a big deal. It's actually not just going to get handed to you. I'd seen some people I'd played with debut before me that I, maybe had a bit of entitlement over because I had been signed so early. So there was a bit of that. You work so hard, and it's a bit of a relief that you finally get told. I still remember being in Des's office when he told me I was going to be playing that week. But yeah, I think back when we both debuted, there wasn't such a big thing. Like now that people have, they call their parents and the media teams filming them in the room, and it's so dramatic. They make such a big thing of it. There's debut jersey presentations. I remember Terry Lamb just come in, shook my hand and said, "Congrats, mate. You'll be joining the club now." And you get on with it. And I sort of liked it that way. I think it's all about the game. It's all about the team. It should always be about the team, not about an individual. And it's maybe after that you get to celebrate with your family and the people that come along with you. So I think I really like the process, how it was nice and simple like that. But obviously, yeah, getting out there, I think I got out there at halftime, the start of the second half, and I only played 17 minutes. And it's certainly not like a lot of people talk about their debut. It's a game they'll never forget because it's the best feeling ever. I was already sick on the bus on the way to the game. I was already feeling crook. I already started sweating. And I've never been someone that's, really gotten too nervous. I think maybe playing cricket. I used to get more nervous playing cricket. I was a bowler if I had to go out and bat, especially, you make a rep team and I'd be that embarrassed. I'd be that nervous to go out and embarrass myself batting playing cricket that I knew what nerves felt like, but I just never got them playing footy. I just always really loved playing footy, really enjoyed it. And it's still to this day, I don't really get nervous. I remember thinking, maybe I'm just a bit nervous because of the game. And then I'd had a few spews in the sheds before the game, started sweating. Sean Lane was 18th man at the time. He's an NRL player at the moment as well. I remember thinking, mate, if you pull out here, one, the families all come up. But I knew in my head deep down, I was going, I'm not right to play. And this is the first impression I get to make on my career moving forward on hopefully the next 10 years. I'm not right to go here. But if I step back, Sean Lane gets the spot and he'll hold that for the rest of the year and I could be a professional 18th man for another 12 months. Anyway, so I sort of got through the warm-up, went out there. I remember one tackle, I think it was Darcy Lussick. I got up and I'd had a bit of a spew in the tackle. And I just was feeling not well and I got up and I think he sort of wanted to, I don't know if he wanted to job me or he wasn't real happy with me. I remember he looked at me and I could just tell he looked at me and just went, this bloke doesn't look right. And he just jogged off. And I didn't last too much longer out there after that, to be honest. So it was a hard one for me too because I think the fact that was my first game, it was my first, like I said, it was my first impression. I didn't play too many minutes for the next sort of month or two after that. I don't think, it took me a while to regain Dez's trust or to make another impression on Des Hasler as a coach. But luckily I stayed at it and become a regular starter in his team. I think it was maybe the start of the next year. So it was a tumultuous first year of playing first grade.
What was it like in that 12 months in the lead up when you're playing resis every week and then your mindset for the 2 months after that? Like, how was that? Like, how determined were you in that or how much doubt was creeping in when you were seeing people potentially jump over you? And
I don't think it was. I think I was, always had a real go-getter mindset around it of just I've got to work a bit harder now rather than, never felt like a victim. Like I said, I might have felt a little bit entitled to get to that point and thought it would just happen. But that was more just to kick up the bum for me, and I think it probably just lit a fire inside me a little bit more. I had to work a bit harder. I remember the 12 months of being full-time, so you're in the top 30, that means, and you're training every day with first grade, but then come Friday you go train in the first grade, get ready for their game, you go train in the afternoon with blokes that are tradies and blokes that are finishing work and coming straight to training, and it's a bit of a reality check for you. And I think it's good for young kids. And we had some good senior players at the Bulldogs at that time that were, near 30 playing reserve grade. And they were good players. And I remember playing with them thinking, geez, I don't want to be 30 and still on the edge and still not making it. So that was a big motivating factor for me. And I remember going away in that off-season and working really hard just in the gym. And I remember coming back in good nick and... Des, who never really gave you too many compliments, but he told me, geez, you're in good shape, like, you're looking good. And I remember thinking, this could be my year. And 2017, that would have been my second year. And I had a really good season that year. So I haven't really looked back since, luckily.
Nice. And what does that prep look like in the off-season for you? And what does it look like week to week to keep yourself in top nick?
Yeah, I think... there's times I wish I could go back and do it all again. Like, I do so many things differently. I think a lot of us would. The game's changed so much more. The professionalism in the game now, everywhere you look throughout a squad, there might be a few old school players that have been around a while, but there's young kids that have come through and it's professional from the age of 15, 16 now, and it's just everywhere you look, people are doing the right things, whether it's with their food, just the knowledge around how you eat and all that sort of stuff. So I think, in the off-seasons now, my whole off-season's dedicated to me getting my body in the right shape to be able to have the best pre-season I could. When I first started, your off-season was about going and letting off as much steam as you could before you come back. So I had that really good off-season where I hadn't been picked. I'd been dropped as well from first. So debuted, been dropped, didn't get back in the team, had that off-season where I really went after it. Played a whole season, didn't miss a game. And I reckon my mindset shifted, and it was like, for some reason, I felt like I'd earned the right to go and have the same off-season as, say, like a Josh Morris or someone that's playing for Australia and playing for New South Wales. And it's like, well, if he gets 8 weeks off and he's going and doing this and I get 6 weeks off, well, I want to go on 2 different holidays, and I want to, go and catch up with my mates and have a beer and go and do all this sort of stuff, and just come back and think that I was, almost on their level in a way, without being arrogant. I think we all sort of fell into that. Everyone that's my age probably fell into that a little bit. Nowadays, like I said, my whole off season is just based around trying to get ready for the next season. It's so hard to play NRL. It's so hard to train every week, let alone play. So those few months that lead into the season, that's what bulletproof you for your season ahead. Yeah.
What's a non-negotiable you've now got playing rugby league? Is there something that you do every day, something that's just you've got to get done so that you can be... Is it the off-seasons now? We really focus on off-season. It's a non-negotiable, set you up for the next year?
Yeah, non-negotiable. I don't know if I really have a non-negotiable, but I just have things that I've really put in place to my lifestyle so that I don't have to change when my life now that I'm injured, the way that I eat, the way that I sleep, the social interaction I have. It's no different to when I'm playing and getting ready for a game. And for me, I think it's that consistency. It's a hard one to say what's a non-negotiable, but I think for me it is about being consistent. I think if I've ever fallen too far out of my routine and gone a bit too wayward there, I do see how it affects my footy. Whether that's, Millie's away for a couple of weeks doing something, so I'm not eating as well or I'm not sleeping as well. And I think a big thing for me has been sleep. A non-negotiable is like I get 8 hours every night. I wear the Whoop. I follow, I have a wearable health tracker that I follow pretty religiously. I've been really into my diet for the last 2 to 3 years, where like 80% of everything I eat is whole foods. I probably try and lean more towards that 90%. Might have a cheeky, cheat meal or something here and there through the week, but my whole week pretty much looks the same. And a lot around alcohol, there's just so much evidence out there that alcohol consumption is not good for injury, it's not good for recovery, it's not good for sleep. So I think you need to limit that, and you need to look at if you do enjoy having a beer like I do with my mates, you've got to look at your season and try and find some times where you're actually going to do that and just be a bit more, have a bit more intent, when you're planning your year. Things
have changed since the Beverly Hill days.
They've definitely changed, yeah. That was all we used to think about. Play a game, we'd be on the bus back to Belmore and we'd be trying to, the little young crew that we had going there, it was which pub we were going to and who was going to get us there. And if someone was Deso driving, they were unlucky. And I try to be the Deso driver nowadays. It gets you out of a bit of trouble.
Yeah. Speaking about Deso, how old were you when you first started drinking?
21. It was when I started playing first grade, which is, I think so bizarre. People wouldn't know. No one would know. That's a good question. No one really, other than Millie and like my close mates, no one knows that about me. Spoke about it a little bit. It's nothing I've ever spoken about publicly, I suppose. But the things regarding alcohol, when I grew up, I just knew that was something that probably could affect me a lot. And if I wanted to, reach my dreams, reach my goals, beat Andrew Ryan one day, he was my hero growing up. If I was going to beat him one day, I thought that was something I couldn't do. So, coming from where I come from, it's a country town. It's a coasty town. People are probably doing things they shouldn't, a lot younger than they probably shouldn't as well. And, I'd be going to parties with my friends at 14 and 15 years old, but, never drinking, I never strayed from my path because I thought that was something that was really going to tie me to getting out of home and being able to move away. And I still think to this day, I don't know whether I would have cracked it. I don't know whether I would have been strong enough to be able to get out of there if I didn't make that sacrifice. Probably the biggest thing I think that's got me to where I eventually was to move to Sydney was, being able to sacrifice that and get out of there. I think it's something that people can balance, but I just didn't think I would have been able to as a young fella.
To have that mental strength between the age of, say, 15 and 21 is huge, because a lot of people have to be in their 30s and 40s to then develop that mental strength.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's taken me 10 years to develop it again. Had it for a long time, lost it for a long time. My dad was really good too. Like he was so strict on me, and I think he saw things in him and maybe saw things in his sporting career growing up. My dad played reserve grade at the Bulldogs, but never quite cracked it. Was never a first grader, and I know he didn't want that same thing for me, and he would have flogged me. He never needed to, but he would have flogged me if I come home drunk as a young fella. And I just didn't want to let him down. I knew he was really clear on, his expectations that he had for me. A little bit of do what I say, not what I do. But yeah, he was really clear on that, and I think that's something I'll try and be as a parent. Have that relationship where you can be, you're not just bossing orders. You're not a school teacher. He was a school teacher, funnily enough, but he was a dad and a friend more than any of that, and I just didn't want to let him down. So that was a big part of it for me as well.
A decade of rugby league now, mate. You've definitely gone through ups and downs over that course and period. What keeps you going?
Wanting to get better. I'm going through a contract negotiation at the moment, and I'm at the point where if I wanted to walk away, I could probably walk away and say, I'd had a decent enough career, but I still believe I haven't played as well as I could. There's something inside me that burns me, that there's still things that I haven't done. There's still things that I want to work on in my own game that I feel I haven't got fully right yet, or I haven't played to my potential. So that's probably the biggest one for me.
What do you want to achieve in the game?
I more so than say accolades or achievements or a certain amount of games, or mate, I'd love to play State of Origin. It's always been a goal of mine to play State, and it'd be out of shame me saying that it doesn't bother me. Every time I step foot to train or play, that's something that I think about. I'd love to wear that blue jersey. But for me now, and the perspective I have, it's more about I just want to work on my weaknesses. And become more of an all-rounded player. I want to be a player that my teammates know. They don't need to check on. They just look across the locker room and they know, Ads is here today. We know what we're going to get from him. Consistent as someone that they can rely on. So I'm working on that. I think particularly the last sort of 3 to 4 years, I feel like I've started to gain a bit of that reputation, but it's certainly something I'm still working on.
Take me back a little bit ago, 2018 and 2021. A little bit controversial.
Yep.
The infamous tag, lost to Millie, gained to Millie.
Yeah.
But before that, 2018, you got personally fined $25,000 and the club fined $250,000.
Yep.
How is your mindset after those, and how has that sort of shaped who you are today?
My mindset was not good at all. You and Josh Jackson visited me. Two of my great mates, two of my most loyal mates already were, I reckon, before that happened. But I think that moment where I really struggled and was like in a bad way, you two were the first two that showed up. Was literally just me and my dad at home. I didn't really want to see anyone else. I was curtains down, doors locked, didn't even want to see the sun. It was a tough time for me. But the fact that you two turned up, it meant a lot to me. It means a lot to me now. I still feel like I owe it to you for that, because I was so young. I was 24. I was 24, getting paid more money than a 24-year-old should be getting paid. And I was on the front page and the back page of every paper in Australia. And my mum called me because she saw the news on Today Show. So it's like a pretty hard thing to go through. And I just bought a house. I was living in a neighbourhood where, I'd like to think I'm a pretty friendly person. So I knew everyone in my street. I'd take the oldies bins out next to me and I'd have chats to them every day. And then that was just instant embarrassment. Every time I saw one of them, I'd hide from them. I just didn't want, you get so worried about what you think people are going to think of you. You let that moment define you, I think, until you learn to not let it define you. It was a massive turning point for me. We talk about mental resilience. Like, I thought I had it. And there's actually been some harder things that have happened to me since that. But, I had someone else that was really good for me, Kieran Foran. Had been through a few tough times in his career as well, and something that he said to me that sticks to me, and it's advice I've given to other people that have gone through something tough publicly more than anything, is that just nothing will break you. And if you get, like, once you get through this, nothing will break you after this. You'll feel bulletproof if you can get through this. So just keep trucking, get through it. Nothing will be able to break you. And something I say, probably my own internal dialogue a lot, and it's certainly advice I pass on to other people. So, mate, tough time, tough tag, something I've had to learn to live with because it follows you around as well. Like Sweet Caroline, everyone knows that was the song that was playing. There's a million articles about it every time it comes on, and I'm somewhere. I think people don't know about it. They know about it. That's just the nature of rugby league in the eastern coast of Australia. It's huge news and people love it. So I've learned to live with it. I probably brush it off like it doesn't bother me anymore. But that's because I've learned to be able to be like that. It's something you need to learn to be able to deal with.
I didn't want to bring it up, and I know how much it burns you, and I know how much it hates you. Like that you hate it, especially when that song Sweet Caroline gets played. And I'll see it now, and we'll be wherever we are. If that song gets played, I can see it in you. And it's just that, it was a great time in our life while we were going through it. But then on the flip side of it, it's not only you that goes through it, and people don't understand this when your name gets dragged across the mud, through papers, front page, back page, on the Today Show. It's your families as well, which probably hurts, it hurts everyone more, and probably hurts you more, knowing that, like, mum's got to see this, and then, mum's got to go to work, and then, what's her son, he's on the back page, and then everyone's talking to mum about it. So it's probably the embarrassment and guilt that you get for your family, and then you try and protect them as much as you can. And I know, like, when there would be negative comments, or I certainly didn't go through any extent that you did, but I know, like, my brother and my mum, they read those comments. They read all of that.
Yeah.
And then, it's hard to hear them sort of go through that, and they're trying to comfort you, and it's not, you don't need the comfort.
It's hard. You don't need everyone telling you how it's making them feel, but the people that are the closest to you. And I think for us, for young men, it's your mum. You never want her to feel, pain because of something you've done. And it was actually, when I do think about it and reflect on it, I think it was something that helped me a bit, because although I was hurting, I could hear the hurt in mum's voice. I knew I had to be a bit tough. I had to act like it wasn't bothering me at all, and be the strong one for her. And it almost at times probably actually did help me be a bit tougher and a bit stronger and get through some moments. And, your mum's always worrying about you. But I think NRL players' mums, young NRL players' mums probably worry a bit more than the rest. And, that's before something goes wrong. So then you add on top of that you're from a small country town where, I hope this doesn't come across like I'm full of myself, but when you do, make it somewhere from a small country town, the whole town follows you, and they're so proud of you, and they claim you. The kids look up to you, and I love that they do. Some people don't, but I love that you get that right and that responsibility. But then, I'm not saying everyone from Tathra has always supported me, and they've helped me through a lot of tough times. My whole community has, but just people in general. I think when something bad happens or there's clickbait, they quickly forget the good things that you've done or everything else you've done before that moment. And I think for me, any advice I would give to a young player is that, to you it might seem like a moment that's not that big of a deal, but to a lot of other people, they quickly forget all the good stuff you do. So you just need to be so careful on the choices that you make.
It takes a lifetime to build a reputation and a second to destroy it.
Yeah. There's a funny joke about that. I probably can't say it on the podcast.
You say whatever you want on here, mate. It's no problem. Lost to Millie, but I reckon, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, that the Millie that you gained is probably the best thing that's ever happened in your life.
Wouldn't change a thing. It's crazy to say. People would look at everything. People would hear what we've just spoken about. Then I wouldn't change a single thing because of where I'm at right now, which is crazy. And I'm not, there's a saying, everything happens for a reason. And I think, sometimes I can sort of buy into that a little bit, but geez, there's some tough things that go on in people's lives that I don't think they deserve, and I don't think I can't wholeheartedly say I believe in that saying, because of some horrible things that do go on. But for me, there's not a single thing I'd change in anything that's got me to where I am right now, because I'm with Mill. We both talk about it a fair bit, that we're from the same area, we grew up together.
There you go.
Yeah, born in Bega Hospital, grew up in Tathra, thanks, mate. But no, it's the same postcode where we're from. It's all the same postcode down there. It's a tiny little community, and we knew each other well. And we were, at times, we wish we could have gotten together sooner. But there's nothing I would change to get to where I am now.
You're now, speaking of Millie, you are now both proud ambassadors of Training Group and also Autism Community Network. I know that you do a lot in the community. What does that mean to you? Yeah,
it's huge. I think once I finally established myself as a first grader, the first thing I wanted to do was try and make an impact. I think growing up in a country town, you're a part of the community. It's easy to lose that as a country boy when you move to Sydney because it's just, it's a fishbowl, especially in the NRL. It's the big smoke. They call it the big smoke for a reason, and it rattles you. But the thing I wanted to get into was working with people like my brother and trying to make some kind of a difference there. I didn't know how that was going to look, and I've built some really strong connections, some lasting connections in that industry. You'd call it. And it's so funny that the way it works, me and Mill probably, after 10 years, didn't connect for 10 years and we've gotten together, and in that 10 years, she's been doing the exact same stuff that I was. And, she's, she was even more prominent in working with disabilities, and her connection with her little sister Hannah that has Down syndrome, and my connection with James, and his autism is something that certainly bonded us, and made us, tighter than we could have imagined from the get-go, and that's now grown into us having a foundation that Millie's founded. I've got to give her the credit there. I just tag on the back of it, but I try and help her as much as I can because it is something that I really care about. And I think for us, it's what gives us purpose, and we know it's something that we can't play footy forever. She's doing some stuff in the media now that I wanted to really pursue and throw everything at, but that's still not going to last forever. But I think our connection to working in that space will definitely be something that lasts forever.
It's obviously something that you're passionate about your whole life. At what point do you realise that you're a big enough brand that you can throw yourself into that?
Still don't think I am. Like, it's funny. Sometimes I have chats with Dutchie, with Kerrod, and he'll remind me that people know who you are, you've been around, you've done this and that, whatever. But, I sort of just try and tag on the back of Miller. She's the superstar, she's the face, and I just slip in behind her. I like that.
Perfect, yeah. She is pregnant, yes.
Slip in behind her, yeah. So, that's one thing. It's one thing I've never been comfortable with is, I wouldn't have, although I pushed Mill so hard to start Trainer Group, and said I'd be there and help her do it the whole time. For some reason, I wouldn't have started it myself because I don't know. Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. Wouldn't want to put myself out, wouldn't want to put myself out there for people to rip it down for something that I care so much about. But I think you certainly, once you start working in that space and see the impact you can make, and part of it's because I've had life experience of working with people with disabilities, but a big part of it's because I'm a footy player and they absolutely love spending time with you. They watch you on telly. It's a big part of it. So I think once you see how much of an impact you can make in that space, and then when I get my teammates to come along and do things, and it's things that these people that we work with, they'll talk about for the rest of their lives. When Jacob Saifides come in and, sat at a table with them, helped him fill out a work booklet, or Kalen Ponga's come in and answered some silly questions from him, and they've been able to laugh about it, the stories that they'll be able to tell forever. I think that's when you realise that you're big enough to make a really big impact. But in saying that, I try and tell the blokes that are playing under 20s, or if they want to come along. Like, you can make an impact, whether you're the janitor or whether you're the captain of the NRL team, if you care about it.
What have you learned from the families and the communities that you help, especially with people with disabilities? You touched on it then. It is the highlight of their life, but how does that also help you?
Yeah, I think I see the ones that you see families and you see how close they are, and I think a lot of the time having someone with particularly a severe disability, you get that. it's like a tribe mentality as a family where, you know, yous are the only ones that really have each other's back deep down. And that's what we had in, you know, the Elliott household growing up. We had our issues, but there was 4 of us in there and we had each other's back no matter what. And I think that's something, you know, pray to God that me and Mill have happy, healthy kids. But a lesson that I'll learn is that all you really need is your family, you know. And I see people that have the best results, people that, you know, their kids have the most improvements are the ones that are the closest. So I think that really matters. Yeah.
I think so as well. And, you know, it's for a player when I would tag along with, you know, any time that we did any community work, it was great for me because I got a lot out of it. And I felt like I got more out of it than what, you know, I was given to anybody, because it just helped me, you know, resettle me and just, you know, bring me back down to earth and go, you know, look how such a small change or such a small part of my day can affect somebody else. And it just, you know, it would make me feel good. And as NRL players, I probably feel that we probably don't get out and do that enough. And you're Millie, using your platform to get out there and, you know, help others. You touched on it, you probably don't think that your platform is big enough, but I think the impact that you both have now through Training Group and the impact that you are continuing to have is amazing in the community, and you should be celebrating it and you should be, you know, looking forward to it.
Yeah, my favourite thing's probably when we run a program and I get a few of the boys to come along, and then all afternoon I'm getting messages from Jaden Brayley telling me he's been on a high for the rest of the afternoon since he come in and he got more out of it than they did. And, you know, blokes like James Schiller that are new to the club and they're coming and diving straight into it, and how much, like you just said, they've got more out of it than what they've put into it. You know, and I forget that feeling at times because you do get a bit stressed when you're running programs, and you got to remember that the end goal of it, you get so much more out of it than you put into it.
You've been playing football for a decade, but you've built a successful property portfolio as well. How have you done that? Have you had someone guiding you along the way?
Went to start in 7-Elevens one day and on a car trip to training one morning. I just thought it would be this. You've got a mate that's a financial advisor or one that's studying to be one, studying to be an economist, pretty cluey. You know, his whole life he loves, all he does is read about this sort of stuff. And I just tossed up, I might buy a service station. And ever since he's gotten into me and said I'm the 7-Eleven man, so it never happened. But yeah, I remember it's something that people always talk about is buying your first home. I think in footy in particular, in footy circles, a lot of the blokes nowadays are lucky enough that they do get some good advice, and usually a lot of that is through property investing. For me, I come from a household where it was buy one home, pay it off as quick as, you know, whatever you got to do, you just pay your family home off. And my parents, particularly my dad was, you know, really smart, but just said, mate, I've got no idea about that sort of stuff. Money's not my thing. I don't know about it. You'll have to there's people out there that are better at that than I am. So when I first got to the Bulldogs, I just saved as hard as I could. I'd never seen as much money. I reckon I had more money in savings at the age of 18 than my parents would have had. So it was something that I just was like, okay, I've got to save up as much as I can and get the first one. And I was probably in a bit of a rush to do it, but got some advice from a friend of mine, James Maroon, who owns a company down in Sydney called TLH. And he just provided me, it was just someone that I could trust. And that's my biggest thing is when I ever talk to young kids about it now is just find someone that you know you can trust and that you can talk about things with, because as a footy player, you don't want to be talking to any average Joe about your finances, and it's something that's hard to talk about. I think everyone knows money's ugly and scary to talk about at times, but I'm so glad I got in on that first one when I did. I've always loved design, like home designs, and I grew up in Tathra. That's like it's a small country town, but it's a coasty town, and there's big hills and there's houses that hang over the hills and have, you know, big beams holding them up and cantilevers and different things. So I've always been obsessed with homes and how they're designed and how the sun hits them and all. You know, as a young kid, I'd always loved looking at it, and so for me, it was so exciting when I finally had a home of my own. And I remember there was big oversized bathroom, but it was an old style bathroom. It would have had 6 different walls in it. The sink had a wall. The sink was in its own room. The toilet was in its own room. The bath was in its own room. The shower was. And I thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I turned it into the master bedroom. All of a sudden had an ensuite, and the other side of the bathroom was big enough for the house. So I changed it into an extra bathroom in the home, and the value of that went straight up. And I went, I probably was a bit naive at the time and thought this is pretty easy, and did well out of that first house. And it's put me into another couple after that. And now we're actually at the point where we're starting to dabble in some development stuff in the place that we're in right now, which is really exciting. But as for having people to guide me, I definitely... Yeah, James Maroon, Gabby, my mate down in Sydney, and then there's been a lot of last-minute phone calls to the big fella over here. He looks after our finances as a family now, and I'm glad he does, because I do come up with some rush decisions at times. So it's good to have some reason to all that sort of stuff. But it's also good that when I come up with an idea that I've got someone that I can trust, like Kez, who's my best mate, but he also, has he puts his financial advisor hat on, but when he does support me and it's someone I can have an open conversation about, geez, it helps me know I'm sort of on the right track.
What's the end goal for Adam after football?
To be able to do what I love, not what I have to do to keep the household afloat. I think that's all. It's so broad, but for me, I still don't know what I love. I'm trying a few different things. I've studied physio at uni when I was really young and coming out of high school. I've just started a project manager grad cert at Newcastle Uni now.
Really?
Studied construction management there for a little bit, but I think the end goal of that was it was going to take me too long to get to where I wanted to get. So I found something that's in the middle, and I think sort of project managing something that I could really utilise my skills from footy over to the workplace. I'm not scared to have a yarn on the phone, so I think that's a strength. Some people aren't, they're not good communicators. So I'll always do stuff with the charity, with the foundation, but that comes from a place of passion for Mill and I. The boys always take the mick out of me at training and say that Millie's going to be the breadwinner and I'll just be at home looking after all the kids with the feet up. And I tell you what, that sounds pretty good to me. You take the mick out of me all day if that ends up being how it ends up being. But I'd love that our hard work that we've put into property now and for the next 10 years or so gets us to a place where we can just do, as a family, we can just do what we love. We can spend time with the kids, and we're not workaholics to try and keep the house afloat.
Something we talk about quite a bit, isn't it? About the ability to invest early and invest a lot, and the ability of leverage within property, that if you do get to 2 or 3 and the market's going up by 5% a year and you've got an asset base that you can increase from 2 mil to 3 mil to 4 mil, that 5% becomes a much bigger number every single year.
It does, yeah. A person who's not short of a crust, Arthur Laundy, who's the major sponsor of the Bulldogs, become a really good mentor of mine when I was at the Bulldogs, particularly after the 2018 incident. We used to go for a coffee every week, and point blank, he just said to me, "Hey, how do you go in the property space?" And at that point, I'd had a house, I was about to buy another one, and he said, "Good. My simplest advice to people," and this is a bloke that owns 85 hotels, and I don't know, he's worth 800 million or something like that. And he just said, blokes that I know that didn't know a thing about finance bought an investment property 20 years ago, and they're all millionaires now because they did it early. And it's exactly what you just said. And you don't want people rushing in and doing things without getting advice. But I don't think you can sit there and wait and try and wait for everything perfect to happen. You got to put yourself under a little bit of stress, and there's no better time to do it than when you're young. I'd rather be stressing now than stressing when I'm 45. Kerrid's age.
Ads, thank you, mate. We're going to finish off with our Fast Five, a couple of questions for you. If you could go back to round 1, 2016, would you change anything?
Yeah, I wouldn't eat as many toasted sangers as I did.
Mate, it was a Vegemite sandwich. When are you going to come off it that it was a cheese and ham and cheese
sandwich?
sandwich?
Oh, no, you weren't even there, mate. You didn't play until the week after, so...
I got from all reports, mate, it was a Vegemite sandwich. Kelly Egan told me, he said he watched you.
Yeah, Kelly Egan, he's trustworthy.
What's one thing that's fatherhood has taught you that nothing else could?
I think true patience as a father. Just I don't know if you can practice it in so many other things that you do, but until it's your kids and you're trying to teach them actual life lessons, I think that's when you learn true patience. Yeah.
If you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
One person.
Yep.
Channing Tatum.
Why?
Look-alike.
That's a lie. I'm not sure who told you that.
What about everyday quote or mantra that you live by?
I actually saw one. Tom Hanks, the actor, was in a clip, and it was "This too shall pass." And I've said it a few times since. Having a bad day, this will pass. Having a great day, so enjoy the moment. This will pass. Like, this too shall pass. It just goes to show that you got to be present.
I like that.
I thought you were going to say run, Forrest, run, because you're not very fast.
I've always been faster than you.
That's a lie.
I flew in, speaking of off-seasons, I flew in from America on the day one of pre-season one day. Me and Matt Frawley, my roommate, flew in from America, went to my house, had a shower, got dressed, put our training gear on, went to the Bulldogs, ran a 2K time trial, and I beat Gerard. He's a winger and I'm a middle forward.
That's a lie. There's no record of that. If you had one day with no commitments, last one, what's it look like?
At the beach, probably got the full drive on the sand and just all my mates there. All my mates and all their kids. Yeah, hanging out, having a good time, playing some tunes.
Very nice. Country boy from Bega. Thank you, Adam, for joining Your Wealth Playbook.
They're actually fighting words where I come from, mate. You better be careful. Thanks for having me, guys.